So the Keystone Reset program is actually something we developed out of testing thousands and thousands of patients across 5 or 6 years. And we've just learned to understand how the bodies knit together in a more comprehensive way. And actually over time, what we've learned is that starting with the Keystone actually opens up the opportunity to make big changes in a lot of joints at a much faster rate. So rather than targeting a single joint very specifically and trying to make big change there, what it's actually allowed us to do is make smaller changes in some other joints that don't necessarily hurt, and then it unlocks the ability to really minimize pain in the joint that's really bothering you. So I'm going to show you how this works a little bit. All right, and if you imagine in architecture, if you've ever seen an archway on a home or something with brick structure, you have this arch that comes up. They have what's called the keystone, and then the arch continues down. Now, thankfully in architecture, it doesn't look like this, because if it did, it'd probably still fall over. So imagine this is perfectly symmetrical, all right? But this structure supports all the weight feeding into the bottom, and then it supports all the weight that's stacked on the top. Now, in human anatomy, this structure is just like how the legs and the pelvis feed into your sacrum, which is the bone at the bottom of the spine. It's got a triangular shape to it. So if you imagine, this is the pelvis, this is the sacrum, and these are the femurs coming out of the pelvis down to your feet, all right? And then on top of that, you have the spine stacked in, and then we got a couple other things that are really important. You got your head up here, we got a couple of shoulders, and then obviously arms, elbows, wrists, and hands flow out of that. And so what we found is that the way anatomy knits into the pelvis, when we start here first, we can actually change a lot of length and tension as it relates to hips, knees, and ankles, and also shoulders, necks, elbows, and wrists, okay? And here's why. From an anatomical perspective, we actually see some muscular planes that actually go from the shoulder down to the same side of the pelvis, and from the shoulder to the opposite side of the pelvis. From a fascial perspective, we actually see this kind of flexible connective tissue. It doesn't contract or relax really, but it kind of has a flow to it, and it's got some directionality, and it actually covers you everywhere. Most people are familiar with the plantar fascia, which is the termination of a fascial tract that comes from the pelvis down to the foot and terminates as the plantar fascia. But actually fascia covers you head to toe and from like just under your skin and integrates all the way down into the skeletal frame. And so we see some of these fascial planes as well follow this muscular tract here, follow the muscular tract here, and then from here we also see tracts that go down the legs in either direction. Some of these tracts have kind of a spiraling pattern, more of a direct straight line pattern. But ultimately what we have found is that through these direct and indirect connections to the pelvis, when we start with the Keystone Reset right here at kind of this central structure, it changes the dynamic of these tracts that flow away from the pelvis. And so when we start here, we actually get some pretty significant changes in the shoulder without working on the shoulder. Same thing for hips, knees, and the feet, okay? So when you jump into this program, we're gonna be really targeting some key areas that are specific to the pelvis, what we call the Keystone Reset program. And the reason why is because it's gonna allow us to change your pain in your specific pain location to a much higher degree and recover your mobility much faster, all right? So that's what it is, that's how it works. In the next video, we're gonna jump straight into how do we start to kind of more specifically diagnose what directions we need to go in the pelvis so that we can go ahead and get you started and get you into the specific things you need for your pain point. See you later.